hit the button and we should see in the top left that we are live.
Yes, I can see the live button.
Come on, says Dalio. If you are watching and you can hear us, can you just reply with something like yes or a thumbs up or something like this? I guess that means nobody's watching.
Yeah. Let me just reply to Dalio. Hi. There you go.
And I can't see how many people. Okay, we have a few people. So there will be a bit of a delay. So when I say something, there'll be a bit of a delay before that gets to YouTube. So let's start this. So hello, everybody, and welcome back to Expert Examiner IELTS, but not a video. This time we have my first ever live stream. So I'm really excited to start doing this, to play with new toys and to show my idiocy with technology. But I'm very, very happy that we have a special guest joining us. This is Brick. He's from the YouTube channel How to IELTS. So first of all, Brick, thank you so much for actually suggesting this and actually doing this with me. I guess the people watching know a little bit about who I am, but would you like to say a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, of course. Well, first of all, thank you for having me, Glenn. I'm actually looking forward to this. My name is Brick. I have a YouTube channel. It's called How to IELTS. And I'm an English teacher. I'm based in Manchester in the UK. And I've been teaching English for 9 years now. 9.5, I think. So close to 10 years. And I specialize in IELTS or teaching English as a second language.
One thing I wanted to ask you is, apart from IELTS, what other type of English teaching do you do? Do you do like adults, teenagers, children? Do you work with like any other exams?
Good question, actually. So currently, I'm teaching in a high school or a secondary school, as some people might know it in the chat. And there I teach students who are 11 to 16, and I'm preparing them to pass the GCSE in English exam. I also, in that school, I also have many students who have just moved over to the UK. So I'm just helping them learn the English language. So it's basically English for beginners. I have taught English to adults in the past. That was back a few years ago. I was living in the Middle East, so I was in Dubai and Abu Dhabi. So there I had a lot of adult students, but currently at the moment it's IELTS and also students of a secondary school age.
And as I understand, you're a bit of a polyglot, right? You speak a number of different languages?
That's right, yeah. So I'm in a very unique position, and this is why I sympathize and I relate to a lot of IELTS students. So I speak English. I also speak Urdu fluently. However, I cannot write Urdu at all. So for those students who can speak one language and not write, or they cannot read, I completely understand. I also speak Punjabi. I'm currently learning Arabic. I would say I'm a beginner. That would be my level. So I get to see language from all sorts of aspects. So I get to see as a teacher, I get to see as a student. Because I'm learning Arabic, and I sit in a class with other students who are also learning Arabic, and then we have an Arabic teacher. So I get to be a student, I get to be a teacher, and I used to be an examiner for English tests. So I've got to see it from all three angles. So it's very interesting. So I do sympathize and relate to all students who are learning English. I'm very proud of you because it's very difficult to learn a new language.
Yeah, it is interesting when you approach it from that way. Like I also have like two first languages, English and Welsh, and my Russian is like C1 speaking, but probably like B1 writing. And then I know like a little bit of Chinese, but I'm down at like A1, A2 and A1, A2 French and things like this. So it is interesting when you're at those different levels and you kind of think like, oh, I'm such a like an IELTS band 3, or wow, I'm an IELTS band 7. You start to see the world in this way.
Yeah. Sorry, I'm just replying to some people in the chat. If you are in the chat, I am reading your comments. Umar said, is Brick an IELTS examiner as well? And the answer is no. I used to be an examiner for an English test in the UAE. However, that test was very, very similar to the IELTS test. So I used to examine both the speaking test and the writing test. Yeah, so I hope that answers your question, Umar John. But Umar John, forgive me if I'm pronouncing your name wrong.
This I've mentioned this a number of times on my channel too, but it's still a question that I get asked. Are you really an IELTS examiner? Now, I am not an IELTS examiner right now. I don't know if you know, but IELTS examiners are not allowed to make this type of content, right?
Yeah.
If you train to be an IELTS examiner, even with your private students, you're not allowed to say, I will give you a score of 6.0, I will give you a score of 6.5, 7.0. I am an examiner with many different exams, but as I mentioned to Brick earlier, I'm not supposed to speak about this because I'm not supposed to use my examiner status. So we all use probably the same thing with you, Brick. You use something called CEFR, which is like C2, C1, B2, B1. Now, all of that is official criteria. All of these exams, the Cambridge exams, the IELTS exams, all of those different exams, they all follow that CEFR, and they have some slightly different like nuances according to it.
Yeah.
Okay, so of course the purpose, we're going to do a couple of things in today's stream. One thing, we have collected some questions from some students and some candidates, and I want to, towards the end of the stream, I want to invite some of these people on to do some practice with speaking part 1 that I think will be fun. But another thing, before we go to the candidates or the viewers' questions, I want to ask you, what are some of the most common questions that you get asked as like an expert or a specialist in IELTS?
This is a very good question. So the one question I would say is that I get asked the most is how can we pass the IELTS speaking test? So my answer to, I'm guessing you probably get that asked quite a lot as well. But the answer to that is, well, first of all, it's not a pass or a fail thing. So you are measured, you are given a band from 1 to 9, 9 being the highest score you can get. So 9 would be the equivalent to a native speaker, and 1 is the lowest score you can get. And to answer that question, though, how to pass the IELTS test, my answer would be similar to when people ask me to, how they can pass any other test. And that is 2 things, really. One is by practicing, and I will give more information about that. I don't want to just give a vague answer, so I will elaborate on that. But the other thing is to look at past exams. So for the speaking test, you can access many past exams on YouTube, including on Glyn's channel, on your channel. You have many examples of mock style tests. Watch those videos and familiarize yourself with the types of questions that you will be asked. Because really, once you understand the structure and the style of questions, it becomes a lot easier. You kind of know what to expect. Now, let's go on to the other point, which is just practice for the IELTS speaking test. So there are 3 parts to the IELTS speaking test. My first piece of advice would be to take a speaking test, even if you have to pay for it, just to see what level you are currently at. Once you do that, you will hopefully should get some type of feedback. The examiner or whoever's marking your test should tell you your strengths and also those areas which you can improve on, improving, and try to focus on those. So, for example, if you are struggling with intonation, then that's something that you can keep in mind. Okay, I need to improve on intonation. However, if you don't know what level you are at, you don't know what to improve on, you might focus on the wrong thing. So those would be my 2 pieces of advice. So again, to summarize, practice. The first step would be to take an IELTS test. And the second one is to familiarize yourself with the IELTS speaking test. And you can do that by watching videos on YouTube.
Yeah, I think it's a really good point. I think like diagnosing the weakness is such an important thing. And I think so many people, always when I have my practice speaking tests, at the end, I always ask the candidate, like, okay, what's your feedback? What do you think went well or what went badly? And say, the grammar was bad. Okay, but what about the grammar was bad? Like, do you have an idea? And they very often they fail to express exactly what difficulties they have. Now, one thing that I do as a language learner is I have like a language diary, and at the end of each day, I write down like what I had trouble with. So if I'm like in a taxi and someone was aggressive and I felt like, oh, I didn't have the strategies to deal with that. And over time, then it's like, okay, I can strategize, I can find areas where I can improve and target this thing specifically, rather than these general questions of like, how can I improve my grammar? How can I improve my fluency? The first step is that diagnosis. You need somebody to point out exactly what's wrong before you can start to fix that thing.
Yeah, sorry, just to add on to that, Glenn, there's also one other thing that's also I think that is completely underrated, which basically means that it's very important, but people don't really talk about it, and that is to look at the IELTS rubric. So the rubric is basically, for those of you who are watching, a rubric is like an answer key, is what every examiner will have in front of them, and they will use that to mark your speaking test. So if you know what they are marking you for, then you know what to look out for. And if you look at this in ahead of your speaking test, so maybe 2 months or even 3 months before your test, you can start to focus on those things that you know you will be tested on. So I think most people don't even know what that is. So something I always talk about on my channel. I forgot to mention that earlier. Sorry about that.
Yeah, I think I made a few videos about this rubric too, because the problem with the rubric is that it's not written in everyday English, right? It's written in a very technical linguistic terms.
Yeah.
So you get words like cohesion and flexibility and a range of sentences and a range of structures and accuracy and control, basic sentences. But most people who read it won't know like what an utterance is. They won't know what connected speech is. And so there really should be there, and there probably is somewhere, and like a simplified explanation of what that rubric is.
Yeah, it has crossed my mind to make a user-friendly one, because this is something that I've done in the school that I work at. I made a user-friendly success criteria is what I call it. So maybe that's something that we could possibly do if we create one that we can share it with our students, and they can almost assess themselves. It's not the best way to get your speaking tested, but it's a good enough way to do something at least on your own. At least you know how to improve. But yeah.
Yeah, starting to think like an examiner, or to analyze the questions, like why is that question there, right? I've done this type of work too, where you're actually the question maker, and it's like, okay, I need to test the candidates like future time and past time, and sometimes thinking about why that question is in the IELTS test can be a useful thing. But I don't want to go too deep into that, but yeah, definitely agree that understanding the rubric is useful. We will come to some of the Telegram group questions that I wrote down earlier. Not many of them are about the speaking test specifically. Again, we get very sorry.
I was going to say, Glenn, whilst you're speaking, just a reminder again, I am responding to the comments. So yeah, so Glenn and I, we're not ignoring you. I'm here in the comments as well. But sorry, go ahead, Glenn. You were speaking about the questions.
Yeah, and I promise we will get to the candidates chat questions very, very shortly too. Nothing really about the speaking test. So there are a couple of questions like, can you give important information for writing task 2 and speaking? And for me, that's such a bad question. I don't want to say bad question, but it's like, what do you mean there when you say important information? Well, okay, writing task 2, you have to write an academic essay. So, you have to understand the types of questions that they ask you, like discuss both sides and give your own opinion, advantages and disadvantages, like causes, solutions, or problem solutions, understand the different essay types, understand how paragraphing works, understand something about academic writing. But this seems like very obvious information. Like, what is important information about speaking? Speak English well.
Yeah, I've noticed as well. Like, whenever I have like a Q&A, I know people want to ask questions, but some of the questions they're so vague or broad that there's kind of no way to give an actual answer. So a lot of the times I will give questions myself and ask students, which one of these questions do you want me to answer? That works a lot better.
That's a good point. One question I was given, which I thought is interesting, is what is your IELTS score, all sections? Have you done any, like, I guess like me, you've done them like for fun, right? You've
Yeah,
done the listening and the reading, or you might do them along with your students.
yeah.
One thing I will say is I don't always get 40 out of 40 for reading. I don't always get 40 out of 40 for listening. Sometimes if I'm doing listening, my brain wanders. You don't get to listen to it
Yeah.
twice. I miss an answer and it's like, damn it. Sometimes for reading, I get 38 or 39. There's true, false, not stated. Sometimes there's a gray area. So I don't always get that 100%, don't always get 40 out of 40. And I don't mind saying that. What about you, Brick?
It's a good question. So I think mine is very similar, by the way, specifically for the listening and the reading. I think the last time I did that, I got 40 out of 40 on the listening, but I got 37 of, I mean, 30, I cannot remember what I got in the reading, but it was in the high 30s. I think it was 37 or 38. But I'm sure if I prepared for that, even if it's like a one day before, I would be able to get a 40 out of 40. And I'm sure that's the same with you. When it comes to speaking and writing, that's like what I've been doing day in, day out for many, many years. It got to the point where I used to have students watch me type out a full IELTS writing task 2 essay. And I did it so many times that I used to tell them in advance, I will stop at, 262 words, and it would be exactly that. So I'm very comfortable with those. I've gotten, I would get 9s in all of them, but I would probably not get 100% every single question right in listening and reading.
Yeah, again, I think if you can prepare and you have time to get enough sleep, to get enough coffee, and to be focused, sure, you can get those. But it is interesting. I always say, like, if I gave my dad the IELTS test, I don't think he would get band 9. And certainly I know there was an Australian guy who couldn't get like more than 6 in the writing. Do you know any, I don't like this term native speaker. I prefer like L1 user, but okay, native speaker, L1 users. Do you know any L1 users who you think probably wouldn't get like band 9, band 8?
This is a really interesting question. I would say, let's talk about this. So the section by section. So for the writing section, I would say that most students who speak English as their first language will not get a band 9. And the main reason for that is because you need to understand, going back to what we were talking about earlier, you need to know what the examiner is looking for. I think most people will not get a band 9. I think they will get a lot, far less, because they wouldn't understand the exam techniques. So again, that's a very important point for everyone watching or in the comments, that it's important to understand the exam techniques. And by exam techniques, I'm specifically talking about understanding what is expected for you to answer these questions.
One more question I want to ask you before I go on. Like, in my experience of examining, there are cases where I come across like a piece of writing or a student speaking, and I think that person, that candidate, is like, it works one of both ways. Either that candidate is an amazing English speaker, but I can only give them a score of upper intermediate, or that person is a terrible English user, but I have to give them a score of intermediate because it matches the rubric. So I want to ask you, how fair do you think these tests are, and how accurate do you think they are at actually assessing people's language use?
Oh, that's a good question. I think so. So with the IELTS writing test, the general IELTS writing test where you have to write a letter, I think that's more of a practical task. compared to the academic test where you have to write a report. Most people probably haven't. They don't have that much experience of writing a report. I mean, how often do you write a report on a bar chart? So you don't really do that in your day-to-day life. So I don't think the writing for the academic test is the best way to assess somebody's writing. But I understand, why they've got those questions for the academic. Most people doing it are doing it for university. So I understand it, but I don't think it's the best way to assess. When it comes to the general, I think that's a more of a realistic question. So I think people are more familiar with how to write a letter, or how to write a semi-formal writing. With the speaking, I think it's a fairly okay way to assess somebody. I don't know about the reading. I'll have to think about that. What about yourself? How fair do you think the test is in examining somebody's English?
Well, it's always tough. I know different exams have different approaches to it. I think overall it's okay. I would say it's like 90%, 95% okay. And it's nice that they have both the general and the academic versions of the test. But really, I would say, like, okay, do you speak the language? I'm going to throw you in that country. Can you book a hotel? Can you find a place? Can you find a taxi? Can you order something at a restaurant? I really, like, I have a background in sociolinguistics. And for me, like, language isn't something that you have in your brain. It's actually something that you, like, an instrument to get things done. But I think overall it's okay. I think, while we can look at some details, I think, the C2s get C2 and the C1s generally get C1 and the B1s generally get B1. So as a short test, it's kind of okay. I have been ignoring people in the chat a little bit, so I am sorry about that. But now I want to go to, so those people who've already sent questions, I'm just going to look through some of the questions. I'll display them on the screen and we'll get through as many of them as we can. And then probably in about 20 minutes, we will start inviting, or maybe in 30 minutes, we'll start inviting candidates on. Okay, let's have this one.
Oh, okay.
So is it possible for students who are using ChatGPT to assess IELTS responses? Very, very good question. I don't know if you'd like to tackle this one.
Okay, yeah, sure. So I've actually checked this. I've checked this myself on different tasks. So I don't think ChatGPT is that accurate, to be honest, when it comes to marking writing tests. So IELTS writing tests, I don't think it's accurate at all. I know ChatGPT is very good in many other things. It's absolutely fantastic in many other things. However, with the IELTS writing test, I would not trust it at all. It's not accurate. With the speaking, I've not tried the speaking. I have watched YouTube videos online, I think from, what's his name? Chris from his IELTS channel, slipped my mind.
IELTS Advantage. Yeah.
IELTS Advantage, yes, yeah. He's also wrote an article, and not about ChatGPT, but he wrote it on the IDP IELTS website. But he published a video, and he too got inaccurate information regarding the speaking test. So yeah, I don't think it's trustworthy.
ChatGPT tends not to give band 9s, so it usually sticks between like 5, 6, and 7. I've done it myself where I've put an essay in, and it's like, they say like, oh, you have band 7. It's like, okay,
it's actually so inaccurate that I remember when I put an essay through, I think the exact word count was 250, bang on, and I asked it what's the word count, and it gave me a completely different number. So if you can't even check that, I wouldn't trust it for to mark your writing, really.
Yeah, I think they gave me 8 for grammatical range and accuracy, and I said like, okay. And part of the response was like, oh, you have to clear up some of your grammar mistakes, and say, okay, well, what grammar mistakes can you find in the essay? And say, oh, there are no grammar mistakes in the essay. Yeah. So, well, okay, fine. Oh, this is a tricky question from Umar John. What do you think is the easiest one to improve among the criteria in speaking?
Oh, that's a very good question. All right, let me just pull up the band descriptors and just to familiar.
Well, I'll attempt.
Easiest one to improve among okay, very good question. By Umar John. Sorry, go ahead, Glenn. Did you say you
I,
wanted to answer that?
I think vocab, and I think there is something when we think generally in the English as a second language world, when we think of teaching languages, we think of the four skills, right? Reading, writing, listening, speaking. We think of three competencies: grammar, vocabulary, and pronunciation. But there is actually a fourth competency, which is functions, right? Language functions. How do we express agreement and disagreement? How do we express opinions? How do we add concessions? How do we buy time? How do we say, well, let me just think about that for a second? Now, this is a very, very dangerous world to get into, because if you start memorizing these bits of language mechanically, right, someone says like, what's your favorite fruit, and the answer robotically comes back like, well, that is an interesting question and I have thought about that many times in my life. However, if you would give me one moment, I think I could provide you with a meaningful answer. For me, I would not give any points for that. For me, that's purely memorized stuff. But if you can learn this functional language, and if you're kind of a good actor, I think you can pick up a lot of points for vocabulary through like faking this natural use of functions.
Yeah. I think I agree. I think that when it comes to vocab, lexical resource, I would say that's out of the four sections, that's probably the easiest, not by much though. I think they're all fairly similar. However, there is something that's slightly confusing when it comes to the pronunciation, which is that they say that you don't get marked for your accents, but you do get marked for how you pronounce things. So there is a bit of a confusing area there. So that can be quite difficult to tackle.
Yeah, it's the accent thing. We actually have this term accentism in sociolinguistics, which is like discrimination against someone based on their accent. Now, my accent's changed a lot since I was a kid, when I had like this strong Welsh accent, because, teaching English, people look at you differently if you speak like a northerner, or if you speak like someone from the south part of America or something like this. And that can be really, really difficult, understanding like what is an accent, because why is like a Nigerian English pronunciation of something not good, but an Australian English one is good, even though neither of them is British English. But still, sometimes we judge, these like expanding circle countries, we call them, or outer circle countries. It's tough.
Yeah, I know they've had this issue. I know many South Africans who have had this issue as well. So in the school that I was working in abroad, if you were not a native English speaker, you had, in order to teach English, you had to take the IELTS test. But a lot of South Africans, South Africans had to take the IELTS test. But their argument was it is their first language. That's the only language they know. So it can be, to some degree, it is a bit of offensive, I would say, a bit of a discrimination. But these are issues that definitely need to be tackled.
Brian is a long-time viewer. He's one of the candidates who got a band 9
Amazing.
in the practice test. Yeah, his English is like puts mine to shame, put it that way.
Okay.
But he says language is rather fluid and integrative in nature. So I will say, Brian, do be careful with the wording of your question, because I want to understand it. It's integrative in nature. So, of course, the way that we use language, it's affected by things that happen around us in society. When a person makes pop culture references, so, maybe if they speak about like a particular band, or maybe a line from a South Park, that's how I interpret it. Like if they mention a line from like a South Park show or a Simpsons show, if they say things like "dough" or "eat my shorts" or whatever, does that add to their lexical resource score? Now, I do have an answer for this, but I don't know if you want to take it.
Let's hear your answer.
There is something in there about colloquialisms in the criteria. I don't think it's written on the official band descriptors, but certainly in the CEFR, these use of natural colloquialisms, and of course, a big part of this colloquial language, this like neologisms, these new bits of language that come into the language, like at different times, that can definitely add to your lexical resource score. It's kind of like using idiomatic expressions, that we should be careful how we use them, but definitely some references to pop culture that are language based, they can definitely add to lexical resource in this category of like colloquial language, like
Yeah.
slangish type of stuff.
Yeah, yeah, I 100% agree. Yeah, especially when you were talking about idioms, that can be something of a sensitive topic because it's good to use them. We don't want to overuse them. So yeah, this is why I was saying before. One of the best ways to learn is to just watch other videos online of IELTS speaking tests, so you can see what a good answer looks like. So there, if you do look at a video of a good answer, you will see when they use idioms, they won't overuse it. They'll use it, every now and then.
And there is that pain. So it's one of my biggest frustrations that I think in lexical resource band 7, they say like use of like idiomatic language. Now, idiomatic language isn't always the same as idioms, right? Idiom is something like, well, the
Yes.
grass is always greener on the other side.
Yeah.
But a piece of idiomatic language could just be something like he turned up late for the meeting, because
Yeah.
turned up is like metaphorical in nature, and
Yeah.
most of our phrasal verbs are idiomatic. So when the rubric says they're looking for idiomatic language, sometimes you get like teachers who look at that and think, okay, you have to use idioms. So when people say like, how is the weather in your country, and they say it always rains cats and dogs, and it's like, oh no, like
We get it all the time, with it is raining cats and dogs in speaking tests.
oh yeah. All right. Brian has another question for us. Oh no, that's the one that he just asked. Dalio really wants to know about ChatGPT, but we've answered his question. But Brian also says the new questions involve childhood memories. I saw a student burst into tears because of this question. It did seem like a genuine trigger to the student. How does this influence the test marking?
I saw it did seem like a genuine. Okay, I don't think I've been put in that type of situation where it's made somebody feel emotional. To be honest, I don't think I'm the best person to answer that. Yeah.
So a kind of an unrelated note, like if you have something like a stammer, right, a speech impediment, some people speak like this, you can actually make the IELTS people aware, and in some cases they can give you extra time. Now, as part of my examiner role, I also do these things called accommodation examining, right? So it's like a certain number of examiners are required to check these specific type of cases where it's like something strange has happened. We can't give it to a regular examiner. Let's give it to an experienced examiner, and they have plenty of time. They have a lot more time to check it. They can make more considerations, and it's down to the examiner's discretion. Now, if the examiner bursts into tears, I guess you can't award marks if the candidate doesn't produce language. And so my thinking on this would be that the student should ask for a refund, and the student should get a refund. The question makers do have specific training to avoid potentially triggering questions. However, we can't always get past that, right? Because you never know what's going to upset someone. If it's like, we don't tend not to ask questions too much about grandparents, because some people, we know they might have had a grandparent that died recently.
Yeah.
And so the question makers should try to avoid those, but sometimes it's just impossible. Maybe you had a bad experience in a cinema, and it's like, how often do you go to the cinema? And for some people, that could be an extremely triggering thing. So my recommendation to this student would be to request a refund. Sometimes it's unavoidable, but if the candidate doesn't produce enough language as a result of this, if she breaks down or he breaks down and they can't continue the test, we just can't award a mark for it.
Yeah, I completely agree. And in the worst case scenario, I think the least thing that you can do is just to appeal, and in your appeal, just explain the situation, and they should cater to your request in incidents like that. To be honest. Yeah. So just like Glyn said, by the way, that if you do have some sort of a sensitive issue, or like a stammer or something, you can make the examiner aware. So I have been in those situations last academic year. Last academic year. So about 6 months ago, I did do a speaking test with somebody who had a stammer, and it's always best to be made aware of those, because now I can work around it. So yeah, if you do have a situation like that, please do let the examiners know. You can do that when you're booking your test.
Yeah, I'd say definitely do it in advance. Don't turn up on the day and tell the examiner. Definitely contact the test center. I just want to respond to one person who's written, says, hello, Ms. Glynn, I really appreciate your hard work, blah, 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 blah. I wrote you an email in response. So this candidate asked for a speaking test. I agreed a day and time for the speaking test. The candidate didn't show up. And then the candidate asked me again, said that there was an electricity problem, and asked me again for a speaking test. I arranged another day and time. The candidate again didn't show up. For this candidate, I will say, write me an email. Probably this YouTube live stream isn't the place to do this. Write me another email. I will get back to you. But also keep in mind that now, about 100 applicants a week ask for these speaking tests, and I can't give special treatment to anyone, but because everyone says it's the most important thing for me. I really need it. I'm desperate. I really need it. You shouldn't rely on YouTubers who give free stuff. You shouldn't rely on those to be like the thing that you need to pass IELTS. I hope that the work that I do, and Brock does, and even that Brian in the comment section does, we all do work because we want to help candidates, but we also require some understanding, from people. That we get messages every day saying, please, I beg you, I'm desperate, and we just can't do it for everybody, unfortunately.
Yeah. Exactly what Glyn said. At the moment, if it helps, I do have some availability, so I will be taking speaking tests and a couple of writing tests very soon. So if you just subscribe to my YouTube channel, I'll send you more details there. If you just put it in the chat, I can add you to my WhatsApp group. But yeah, as you can imagine, it can get very busy. And just like Glyn said, if your life does depend on it, you might need to find a paid option so you can get a very quick service.
Yeah, and remember, I'm not the only YouTuber doing this. There's also Brick who's doing this, and there are other people. I don't know if there are many people doing it for free, but certainly there are some people doing it for like $20 or something like this. But shop around and try to apply at so many different places, and you might get lucky somewhere. I didn't put your YouTube link in the description, but I will do this after the stream, and feel free to put it in the chat. If you can, guys, if you are watching, please do go and subscribe to Brick. Us smaller YouTubers don't usually get a lot of attention, so it would be nice to see a little bit of interest.
I know someone, is it Nam Gaming? So Nam and a couple of others have asked. So I'll post the link again. My YouTube channel is called How to IELTS, if you are wondering. So and I've got a few tutorials there. I will be uploading a lot more consistently now.
I'm just wondering if I can edit. I really shouldn't press edit on anything because I will break something. So for the moment, just put it in the chat. But I will try to put it in that description section. Dalio keeps asking about ChatGPT. Okay, I'm going to ignore that.
There's a body language question on this from Dalio.
I'm just scrolling down, so I'm going through as many.
I'll leave the questions to you, and then when you appear, we'll answer them.
Yeah, we will try to get to as many questions as possible. How I improve my grammar while I'm speaking. First, improve your grammar while you're not speaking. Second, improve your grammar when you're writing, and then try when you're speaking. Again, diagnosing the problem is really important. If you have mistakes with present simple, I would say just focus on getting present simple right all of the time. We have two things that we focus on with grammar. There's accuracy and there's range. But there are like hidden secret rules. They are called flaws and ceilings. So like we can't award a candidate more than this mark if you blah 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 blah. And so if you have repeated systematic mistakes with present simple, you're not going to get more than a band 5. There are some cases where maybe you could get a band 6, but just getting present simple right like all of the time will be such an improvement to your grammar. So instead of focusing on like the range, oh, I need to learn first conditionals and second conditionals and third conditionals and reported speech and modal verbs and past perfect continuous and continuous infinitives and perfect gerunds, instead of focusing on that, most people have repeated mistakes with basic grammar. I would say that if you look at a typical intermediate B1 resource, if a candidate masters B1 grammar, they can get a 7 in IELTS. Just mastering B1 grammar. So forget about B2, C1, the difficult stuff. If you can become a master of B1 grammar, you will do fine in IELTS for your grammatical score. But present simple, present simple, present simple.
That is by the way, for those students who are watching, as a teacher, listening to Glenn, that is amazing advice. There's nothing more I can add to that. That's perfect, that piece of advice. So if you didn't catch that, once the video is out, go back and listen to that again. Because when it comes to grammar, lots of people ask, how do I improve grammar? But it's the equivalent of saying, right, what do I do when I go to the gym? It's too much of a broad question. Yeah, that's a lot of good advice there, Glenn.
I think of it like playing chess, and I want to make that video about that, right? How do I get better at chess? It's like that question cannot be answered, right? You have to understand what chess is, the beginning, the middle, the end game, the tactics, the strategic positioning. There's so much that goes into that question. How can I improve? And even like, how can I improve my end games? That's a broad question. Oh, and Zay also said hi, Glenn, earlier. So hi, Zay. Sorry. So the question here is, what is the best method to increase vocabulary in writing? Again, I have so much to say, but I don't want to dominate. I'll throw it to you, Brick.
Okay, so I tried to keep this short because I think my answers have been very long. I don't know if this is the best, but it's very easy to do. But one way to increase your vocabulary, whether it's writing or anything, is to read. So the more you read, the more access, the more you will be exposed to English words, and it will also let you know of words that you might not be familiar with, and it'll give you enough time to highlight those words and research those words, or just Google those words. And if you're thinking of what types of text you could read, well, if you're preparing for the IELTS test, you could just read the reading section of the IELTS test, and also try to look at some band 8 or band 9 writing task answers, and just see how familiar you are with the vocabulary there. And then if there are some words there that you're not familiar with, try to learn those. I don't think there's a best way, but I think there are a few. The suggestion I have is to read more.
Yeah, I don't know if you know of a linguist called Stephen Krashen. He basically says the whole world of English language learning is terrible. We do things that are completely unnatural. We all have this ability to acquire language. So now there's a big movement called like language acquisition rather than learning. And a lot of that is about reading and watching.
Yeah.
Making sense of it, just like you did when you were a child, being exposed to language. He has this like N+1 theory that is like, if you understand 85% or 80% of a text, you can kind of work out from context the other 20%. So it's about finding that suitable reading material or suitable watching material. I will say that candidates sometimes try too hard in vocabulary. And when we think about like good vocabulary, we mean words that are specific to the topic.
And natural as well. But sorry, again, Glyn mentioned a very good point there, which is also to watch things. So if you watch like a TV show that is in English, you'll be exposed to the English language, especially to things like intonation and fluency or even pronunciation. So just by exposing yourself to these types of things, whether it's TV shows or text, you will learn more English vocab.
Yeah, one thing I would do with beginners, I would even try not to teach them the alphabet, and I would get them to, especially with kids, to listen to the language before you read it, right? Writing and reading has been around for a couple of thousand years, few thousand years, 10,000 years. Speaking has been around for a lot longer. And so it's like, yeah, for pronunciation, definitely a lot of listening and speaking. And of course, at a higher level, then reading is good too. But I think maybe your wife is in the chat, because how to IELTS, your videos are also phenomenal. Nice.
No, my wife's definitely not in the chat. But, whoever wrote that, Namgenia, thank you so much for that. That really means a lot. Again, I am a small YouTuber, so words like that, they mean a lot. Thank you.
Another thing about vocab, how can I use complex vocabulary in my speech? I would just recommend you to forget about complex vocabulary. When I do some of my let's write videos, on purpose I try to avoid using complex vocabulary. I try to use simple, natural, clear ideas. One thing, mostly in writing, but also in speaking, you don't want to make the examiner interpret, right? There's something about how easy somebody can be understood. And sometimes when you use complex vocabulary, the examiner thinks, what does, maybe she means this, or maybe he means that. And so if your answer can only be understood through interpretation, it lowers your score for coherence. So if I'm asked the question what kind of t-shirts do you like? And I find a bit of language that I think is complex. And I think, well, I like the distinguished patterned t-shirts. Brick, as the examiner, thinks distinguished pattern t-shirt, maybe he means the pattern with the, and this then requires Brick to interpret the answer. And so you lose scores. So when candidates focus too much on vocabulary, I feel they confuse the examiner. Sometimes they directly translate words from their own language that don't really work. So I would say, really, you don't need complex vocabulary. You can get a band 9 without using complex vocabulary. But I don't know. It depends on what you think of as complex vocabulary. What do you think of as complex vocabulary, Brooke?
I would agree with you in regards to just try to use simple language. You want to use, when I say simple, I mean use natural language and natural English. So English that is very easily understood, because even whilst Glenn and I are speaking, this is a conversation. We are not using any complex vocabulary when we are speaking to each other. And we've been on this video for almost an hour. So that is a clear example of that. You don't need to use complex vocab. I know many people try to do this in the, like you said, the speaking and the writing, but it doesn't come across as natural. So you want to kind of not think about it as much, to be honest.
Yeah, and oh yeah, it's in speech, not in writing. So I was going to make a point about writing. Okay, we do have more. Of course, we can go into these in a lot more detail, I know, but the questions keep flooding in. I'm overwhelmed, actually, by the response. I'm very happy to see so many people here.
Yeah,
I'm just going to jump down a little bit. Okay, I've answered this question. So if I use more idioms in speaking part 1, 2, or 3, will it help me get a good result? In 90% of cases, it will make your result worse, not better. In 90% of cases. If the idiom naturally emerges, right, then it's fine. But it's very rare that this happens. Usually these are what we call frozen expressions, these idioms. And when you deliver frozen expressions artificially, it's easy to spot that it's not correctly used. So I would say 90% of cases, it will make your mark worse, not better. You mentioned, Brick, that there was a question about body language, so I'll throw this one over to you. Body language and sense of humor, also some good smile. Can they be useful or not in speaking?
Okay, good question. They are definitely useful. Even from, so first of all, you don't get marks for your body language. So technically, it's not that important. However, I would say personally, it's very important, because if you were just to like slouch and be lazy, it will affect your performance. But if you sit up straight, it will just make you feel more confident, and you want to come across as confident in your speaking test. So yeah, body language, I would say, is important. Humor, sense of humor, also is important. You don't want to overdo it, because it is a speaking test. It's an interview. And yeah, good smile, that will definitely help. Yeah.
Yeah. The examiner is a human, and
Yeah.
humans are influenced by all kinds of things. If we weren't, people wouldn't spend their trillions of dollars on marketing every day. So while it's not in the criteria, it certainly can help. But there is one practical advantage to having like facial expressions, right? Now, you might notice that when you smile, you kind of speak in a more like in a happier thing, in a happier tone. And then when you're depressed and you look like this. So sometimes your facial expressions can match your intonation. And there is one point about pronunciation, about like conveying information, not through just the language, but through the pronunciation, showing that you're shocked or happy or surprised, not just by saying, and then when I opened the present, I was shocked and I was surprised. But if you have positive, and then I opened, look at my eye, and then I opened the box, and it's like, wow, I couldn't believe it. So all of that stuff with that body language, usually some nice features of pronunciation kind of match on to that.
Yeah, yeah. And that will also go that would lean into the more of the intonation. So just being happier and more confident will lead to better focus on intonation. And intonation is something that you do get marked on. So like Glenn was saying, if you're speaking about a happy time and you don't sound happy, it just doesn't sound natural. So do keep that in mind. So to answer your question, yeah, body language, I would say, is very important. It will definitely help you out. Yeah.
AJ says the grammar of my writing is good, but the problem is with the grammar of speaking, I lose grammar due to the limited time limit in speaking. How can I improve? How can balance between fluency and gram?
Okay. Right. So I think that's not the case, Ajay, because the time is it's not like you have less time for grammar. It should already be incorporated in your speaking. So I just want to read this again. I lose grammar due to the limited time limit in speaking. It might be that that's not the case. There are ways you can improve your grammar, but I don't think that's the reason why if you say you're losing marks, I don't think that's why you would be losing marks. How can balance between fluency and grammar? The better your grammar is, the more fluent you can become, and probably, yeah, that way I would say the better your grammar becomes, the more fluent you can become. And I don't think it's a balance between the two. They are not the opposite of each other. They go hand in hand. What do you think, Glenn?
Yeah, I think sometimes there can be students who are like overly focused on accuracy. Sometimes the cost can be fluency. And sometimes when students are focused on fluency, it can be at the cost of accuracy. But I would just wonder who's given AJ this information, who has diagnosed this problem. Is this something that AJ's diagnosed himself or herself? And how do they know that that's the problem? Because a lot of people tell me that the grammar in my writing is good, or I know grammar, but just looking at this sentence, right, or just looking at this, I know AJ's not thinking in terms of grammar here, but there are lots of basic grammar mistakes, right? How can balance between fluency and gram? Like, how can who is a missing subject. Okay, due to the limited time limit, that's nice bit of cohesion there. So are you sure that your grammar is good in writing, and who's told you that? And are you sure that your grammar is bad in speaking, and who's told you that? For me, a big frustration is that candidates can go and do their IELTS and they see their score for speaking, but they don't get the breakdown of the score. They don't tell them what it was for fluency and coherence. And I think that the IELTS people should do that, because when you take your test, then you can see, oh, hold on, my grammar's fine, my vocab is fine, my fluency is fine. The problem I have is pronunciation. So getting someone to diagnose that problem, then to be sure that that is the problem, and then finding the strategy to work on it. So yeah, don't just because you feel your grammar is good or you feel your grammar is bad, doesn't always mean that that's the case. Because I know so many students who think, like, they say, oh, my pronunciation is terrible, but my grammar is great. And really, their grammar is not so strong, but their pronunciation is amazing. So yeah, sometimes students or candidates are not the best judge. Okay, my reading and listening scores are 9, but writing and speaking are 6, like everyone else in the world. My idea generation is very weak. What can I do? Idea generation, this has been a huge topic in the last few years. Any thoughts?
Right, this is a lot of my students struggle with ideas as well. What I would do, so let's look at let me just read the quick idea generation, very weak. So if you look at let's look at the speaking one first, so the speaking test, because you said that you struggle with that one and also the writing. So with the speaking, for part 2, you'll be given a topic. So you'll be given a card. On that card, there will be a topic. Most people struggle with ideas regarding that topic. So there are a few techniques that you can use. It's difficult for me to explain without things in my hand, so I'll try my best. Just say your topic is giving a gift, and you don't like the questions that are written on the card. You can answer your own questions if they're similar. So I have this 5W technique. Oh, the camera. The 5W technique, which is who, what, where, when, and why. And if you can finish those questions off, it will give you some ideas. So, for example, if your topic is about giving gifts, then your who could be, who did you give the gift to? Your where could be, where was it when you gave the gift? When could be, when did you give it? Was it somebody's birthday? Was it for Christmas? Was it for Eid? Why could be, you just answer these questions and it will help you with your ideation or generating ideas. So that's for speaking. Task 2, use the 5W technique. I think I have got a video on that on my channel. When it comes to writing, let's look at writing task 2. It's always better to give specific examples just because it's easier to understand. So let's say you have an advantage-disadvantage question on technology. And what are the advantages and disadvantages of using technology in a classroom? I would break that question down. Just quickly draw a table, advantages on one side, and just list as many advantages that you can think of regarding the question. So in this case, advantages of technology. Then when you think of the advantage, answer another question, which is why. So let's look at a real example. So one of the advantages of using technology is that you can use the internet to translate. I've just made that up now, by the way. And then why would be, why is that an advantage? So you could say that is an advantage because it helps those students who don't speak English fluently or who are beginner level students. So I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, there's lots of things that we can do. I really like that idea of like, I try to get my students in that frame of mind too, where it's like, okay, anytime you have any sentence, like what are the avenues? What are the roads where you can take this now? It's like, but it wasn't like that in the past, but it might change in the future. But my sister thinks blah, 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 blah. And those are all different ways.
Yeah.
With idea generation for speaking in part 3, it can be a bit tough because the themes are unfamiliar. But the reason for this is that the CEFR says that C1 and C2 users of English should be able to give meaningful responses on both familiar and unfamiliar themes. So it is perfectly natural. If I have a question like, which humanoid robot do you think will be the most successful in the next 20 years? Now, I don't know one humanoid robot, right? But my answer could be, well, humanoid robots, they're not really something that I'm very familiar with. Like, I saw some conference, like Elon Musk was presenting something, and I think they had some bot. But I also read on the BBC recently about like the Japanese, and there are some Japanese companies that also create these humanoid robots, like to work in hotels or something. And, I think the Japanese probably have a longer history in robotics. So if I had to give an opinion, I'd probably say it'd be a Japanese company. I know nothing about this topic, but I can still provide a meaningful response. I don't need an idea. I don't need a company that will be successful, but I can respond to unfamiliar topics in a way that other L1 users respond to unfamiliar topics. So sometimes talking around, if you can give a direct answer, great. But sometimes expressing in a long way why you don't understand can be useful too. I think we'll just do one more question before.
Sorry, Glenn, can I just add on to that point, which is if you notice, Glenn didn't just make up his answer. He just said, look, I don't know too much about this. However, I know a little bit about this. So it's very important for the students. You need to remember that you are not getting tested on your knowledge. If I ask you a question about an iPhone, you don't know anything about an iPhone, that's fine. In the IELTS test, you're just getting tested on your English language. That's it, not on your knowledge of random things. So if you are faced with a question, you don't know anything about it, that's fine. Just say to the examiner, look, to be honest with you, I don't know too much about this. However, I know a little bit of information about this, and they will just assess you on your speaking skills. That's it.
All right. Sorry, my brain is half on finding another question. Brian has a question that I don't think I can answer. I want to ask about this. I guess he's talking about this releasing of the individual scores. IDP China is now releasing a breakdown of the 4 criteria. I was floored to see 6.5 cohesion and coherence, 7.5 GRA. This is strange. It's my understanding that we don't award half marks for the individual criterion. 7.5 is impossible for GRE. No, it's a 7 or an 8.
Yes, that doesn't sound like forgive me for my.
But it's IDP. But
yeah, that doesn't sound like an authentic.
But IDP is.
Yeah.
There are 2 main providers, right? IDP and British
IDP,
Council.
Yeah, the British Council. Oh, so it is IDP China is now releasing. Okay, this is news to me. I've not heard anything about this. I know that I know they have released it was quite a while ago where you can reset just one specific component of the IELTS test. So if you don't do as well in writing, you can do that one again. But I'm not too familiar with giving half band, especially for specific sections of one component of the test.
Very strange indeed.
Yeah, maybe they're trying it. I don't know.
IDP, yeah, maybe IDP has done a number of strange things, but that's all I'll say. But that's interesting. I will chase that up actually and see if I can find information. I also heard a nice hack that because of data protection laws, you can request from the test center all of the information that they have about you, and by law they have to provide this information, and included in this information is the breakdown of the individual scores.
Oh, that's interesting. Okay.
All right. Does anyone want to join us to do some IELTS practice speaking part 1? Now, if you would like to join us, you need to be a member of my Telegram channel, just because I need to send you the link, and I can't send you the link otherwise. So if you are on my Telegram channel, I'm going to send a link. I'm going to not send a link. I'm going to write a post now. Here you go. Would you like to do some speaking part 1 practice? Brock, if you have anyone from your WhatsApp group who'd like to do it, you're welcome to send them the link too.
I will ask now.
Some part 1 speaking practice on our stream right now. So I'm sending this to my Telegram channel now. Then I will just pick a couple of random people and I will send you the link to join us. So that is now on the Telegram channel.
I've just posted in my WhatsApp group. So we'll see if we get replies.
I'm going to copy the link. So we've had a couple of replies already. The first one we have is going to be only me. Only me, if you are there on Telegram, I have just sent you a link to join us. We will ask you about 5 or 6 questions. We want to try to get through as many people as possible. So about 5 or 6 questions we will ask you. Do you want to ask the first set of questions, Brick? Or do you want me to ask?
Whatever's easy for you, I don't mind.
Yeah, I'll let you ask the first questions and I'll give the feedback, and then we'll alternate after that. So waiting for only me to join. And this is the painful thing. I probably should have thought about this before, that now we're going to have this dead time. So while we're waiting for only me, maybe we can reply to other things. How can I improve my writing by reading sample essays?
Do you want me to answer this?
Sure, I'm writing to only me.
Oh, so yeah, so I'll answer this. So how can I improve my writing by reading sample essays? So reading sample essays, especially if you know what band score they got for that essay, it will give you a good idea of what a good essay looks like. So, for example, if you want to get a band 9 in IELTS writing, well, how do you know what a band 9 essay looks like? If you read a band 9 essay, it will give you a clear indication or a clear idea of what a band 9 essay looks like. So you can look at the vocabulary that's used, how many paragraphs that are used, the word count, the topic sentences. So by looking at sample essays, you have to analyze those essays, and it will give you some idea of what needs to be included in your essay to get similar results.
Right, I'm just adding Maruf to stage.
I think Maruf, yeah.
Maruf, I've just muted you. Can you press mute on the YouTube, because we can hear your YouTube stream? So just press the mute on the YouTube stream.
Okay.
Amazing. All right, Brick. Do you want to... Thank you for joining us, Maruf. Thank you for being our first ever guest. Brick is going to ask you 4 or 5 or 6 IELTS Part 1 questions, and then I will give you a little bit of feedback.
Okay. Hi, my name is Brick. What is your name? I think you're on mute. What is your name?
Could you hear me?
Yes, now I can hear you. So I just want to introduce myself. My name's Brick. What is your name?
My full name is Maruf Ahmed. You can call me Maruf.
Nice to meet you, Maruf. Right, so I will ask you a few questions about your hometown.
Yes.
And so let's begin. Where is your hometown?
Well, I'm from a small district, Kulabganj, which is a sub-district of Sylhet Division, situated on the outskirts of the main central area where I live.
Okay. And is your hometown a city or is it a village?
Well, it's a kind of a city. It's a combination with city and village, because as I said, it's a sub-district, so it's combined with cities and village sites.
Okay, good. And can you describe your hometown, Maru?
Well, I could say that.
Sorry, just 1 second, 1 second, 1 second. I've muted you, Maruf. So there's also a problem. We can hear a lot of noise when Brick asks you a question. I think because your speakers are on. Oh.
Hello.
I think, Maruf, have you got your YouTube video open as well? Because you'll need to mute that and just leave the link that's Glenn has sent you. Just leave that open.
It's,
There you go.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Would you like to repeat the question, Brick?
Yeah. So can you describe your hometown?
Of course, I could. I could say my hometown name is Gulabganj, which is situated on the outskirts of the main central area. It's completely renowned for our old historical things, and the most critical things is it's obsessed with a lot of altitude where I lived, and we have a vast culture. People strive to visit our local areas quite uh, quite familiar time. Sorry, just okay. Okay, okay. I'll try my best again. I think I little bit nervous about in front of camera.
Okay, don't worry, this is fine. I'll just ask you one final question. What kind of public transport do you have in your hometown?
Well, in my hometown, there have a plenty of transportation available in there. For example, CNG, which is actually called CNG, but it's a small vehicles. People used to it traveling one place to another place by using it. Also, bus and another source of transport is available in there. People used to it traveling by using that, and I could say that maybe CNG is more convenient for us.
Okay, thank you. We will stop.
All right, I'm going to just give a bit of feedback. I have muted you again, Maruf, because again, we get a lot of background noise. So, firstly, I think it's clear that you can speak English. You're quite clear with your answers. There is a problem with that. I think some of your answers are memorized about like situated on the outskirts of, and you used a lot of what I call heightened language, right? You used things like it is renowned for, and you talked about the altitude, and it has a vast culture that thrives to be. So a lot of this language feels too high. It feels like you are like writing a poem or something like this. The IELTS speaking test is a test to measure your natural language use. Now, when people ask you about your hometown, I don't know if with your friends you would say, oh, it is renowned for its altitude and its vast culture, which thrives to do things. So for me, it feels a little bit like you're trying too hard because it's a test. And in your brain, you think, oh, it's a test. I must use all of this crazy difficult language. But I think that makes your language sound a little bit unnatural. You also mentioned a couple of things that I don't know, like C and D and evalindever. I don't know what those things are. So be careful when you use. You mentioned this transport. Let me ask you, Maruf, what was this transport? You said CND and
Yeah, I said that CNG, but like it's an auto rickshaw. I need to mention in there that it's an auto rickshaw.
Okay, okay.
what
Yeah,
is auto rickshaw?
Like it's three tires vehicles.
Oh, a rickshaw.
yeah, I think this is.
I see. So again, unfortunately, Maruf, we get the background noise. If you are watching the YouTube video now, it creates a lot of background noise for us. So I've muted you there. So the small piece of advice I would give you is approach the test just like you're speaking in your everyday world. Don't think of it like a job interview. Don't try to use this crazy high level language, because for me, it makes your speech sound a little bit unnatural. Yeah, I don't know if you have anything to add, Brick.
I think, yeah, I agree with you, Glenn. You started off very, very well. You started off good. But some parts did seem like they were memorized, like the situated part. I think I noticed it was memorized, or at least it looks like it was memorized because you said it a few times. But overall, I think you did quite well, considering that you are live on a YouTube channel. So that can be quite hard to do. So we completely understand that. It takes a lot of confidence to do that. But yeah, I would try to just focus on, just like Glenn said, try to focus more on speaking naturally. That's what we're looking for. Yeah.
All right. Thank you very much, Maruf. We're going to go to the next candidate. See you again.
Bye, Maruf.
Yeah, also be careful if you are joining our stream, please turn your YouTube video volume down because we can hear so much of it in the background. Some people on the Telegram channel said, yes, I would like to join. I've sent the link out to a few people and nobody's come. So I'm going to send the link out to a few other people. If you join, don't worry, you will go into the waiting room and we will pull you on. Maybe I will put the link. I don't know how this will work, but I'm going to put the link to join us in the Telegram chat. So as a reply, you can see now in the Telegram chat the link to join us. If you want to join, feel free to come up. There might be many of you, so we might put you in a waiting room, but the link is now there on Telegram. It's nice to see these new technical problems that you don't really expect the first time.
Yeah, you're doing really well. You're doing much better than I would be. So again, for the audience, everything has been arranged by Glenn. So thank you to Glenn. I'm just here as a guest. Glenn's doing all the hard work. I'm just here. So again, Glenn, on behalf of your audience and from me as well, thank you. This doesn't look easy.
It's much easier than you might think, but we have a new candidate. So we have a couple of people that have joined, 3 people that have joined. I'm going to pull one person in first. If you have joined, don't worry, we will get to you shortly. Hello, Amit, can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Great. So I'm going to ask you some IELTS Part 1 questions, and then Brick is going to give you some feedback. So let's talk about clothes. What kind of clothes do you like wearing?
I personally prefer clothes that are comfortable because I think comfort is more important than showing off style or how expensive the cloth is.
And did you have any favorite piece of clothes when you were younger?
Well, as a child, I spent most of the time wearing shorts, so I don't think I can remember much beside wearing short pants and shirt.
And are there any situations when it's better not to wear comfortable clothes?
I think in a formal setting, for instance, someone has to wear coat or shirt or they have to follow certain dress codes. So it can be a little bit uncomfortable for someone, but they have to follow the rules.
And what kind of clothes do you wear when you play sport or do exercise?
Well, during exercise, I think it is important to wear a little bit tight and more flexible clothes because it requires a lot of movements to do exercise and attempt or participate in any kind of sports. So I think flexibility is more important.
And I will ask you one Part 3 question. Some people say that wearing expensive clothes shows that you are a successful person. Do you agree?
I do not agree with this statement. I think there are a lot of people who actually try to show off their money by buying expensive clothes, but in market they are actually available copies and duplicates which people actually can buy at a cheaper price. So it certainly does not represent or show their financial status.
Hey, thank you. I'll pass you over the Brick.
Okay. Well, is it Omid? Is that the name? Is it? Forgive me if I'm getting it wrong. Right.
Yes,
Overall, Omid, well done, by the way. That was a very impressive section of the exam. So here's what I specifically liked. So when you answered the first question, you didn't just answer your question about clothes. You justified your answer. So you answered the question and then you gave an extra sentence. I like wearing comfortable clothes because, and then you gave a reason, and you did that throughout the speaking test, and you did it in a very natural way. Also, you did that with the formal setting when the question was asked about, do you think, is there any times where you shouldn't wear comfortable clothes? You said yes, and you gave an example of a formal setting. So again, you're elaborating on your answers. You're giving extra information. One of the best ways to do this is to do it's just the way you did, which is just give a reason. Okay. Also, I really liked, I think it was your last question, where you said, I do not agree. Most people would just agree because they think, oh yeah, I want to impress the examiner. Whatever the examiner says, I want to agree. You said, I do not agree. And that shows confidence. So again, well done to you for that. And again, you are allowed to disagree. Overall, well done. You were very fluent.
Yeah, and of course, it's really difficult to give scores based on just a short sample. But I think candidate does sound like he's C1, like 7.0, maybe a little bit higher. Of course, we'd want to see if he can manage that over all of the test. But based on this performance, I think, candidate is advanced C1.
Yeah. Just one more thing, just so I can leave you with some information to potentially improve on. I'm not sure if this is because of the audio. Maybe it is, but I would try to focus on speaking clearly. So again, I don't know, maybe you are speaking clearly, but the mic isn't. But that would be my feedback. So to speak clearly.
I think it is due to my throat. I actually have cold, so I'm actually struggling a little bit.
Okay, well,
but also,
I do apologize, and I hope you get better.
No, it's okay. It's okay. I think it's important to be clear, because what's the point of speaking if the speaker cannot hear everything clearly? But I'm to thank Glenn, because I actually took a free IELTS speaking test few weeks ago, and Glenn gave me feedback, so it really helped me to elaborate a little bit more.
Okay. Well, that's good.
All right. Thank you so much for joining us, Omid. We have a few more people waiting, so I'm going to go to the next one. Thanks, Omid, and have a wonderful evening.
Okay.
Oh, sorry. I kicked him. Sorry about that. Okay, next we have Mayank. So the order that we have, just so you know, if you are there waiting, I've removed the link. So we'll go to Mayank next, then we will have Dalior, then we will go to Mohammed Ajar something, then Otabek, then Balnur, and then Musaka. So, and I think after that we will probably end the stream. So Mayank, I'm going to pull you to the stage. Can you hear us?
Hello, Glenn. Hello, Brick. Yes,
Hi,
I can hear you.
hi, Mayank. Do you want me to ask these questions, Glenn?
Yep.
Okay. Right. Right. We'll ask some different questions. So let's talk about family and friends. So how many people are there in your family?
Well, there are 4 members in my family: my parents and my elder brother.
Okay. And who are you closest to in your family?
To be honest, with my mom, because I share everything with her, and I'm closest with my mom since my childhood.
Okay. And can you describe a typical day with your family?
Oh, well, the ordinary day with my family is when we have dinner. Like, it's dinner time when we sit together for the dinner, and we talk the things which we do all the day, and we also watch some TV shows all together.
Okay. And a final question, just about friends. What do you usually do when you meet your friends?
Well, when I meet with my friends, we share some old memories, which is very funny in the past, and we also share our future, like what we can do in our future to like the jobs and some business ideas.
Okay, good. Right, we'll stop the test there, and then we'll go over to Glenn for feedback.
So again, answers are clear. The length of your first answer was a little bit short, but for me, the most noticeable thing in your language is your intonation. So all of your intonation sounds a little bit like this. Now, I'm not making fun. I just want to show you how it sounds. It sounds what we say mechanical in one tone. So when you speak, it feels a little bit like you are speaking like this. So you don't connect different words together. And this will affect your pronunciation. Like you started by saying like there are 4 members of my family. And there was a point like where I think you said like when I meet with my friends, it felt like when I meet with my friends, it felt a little bit like I could hear you trying to access the words. And this is something we have training for as examiners, to understand what is natural language production and what is it, what do the candidates do when they are looking for the next word in the sentence. So for me, your vocab is okay. I didn't see anything terrible in the grammar, but we have to be aware of intonation. And I know for many people, it's very uncomfortable because some people feel like I'm an introvert. This is the way that I speak. But if your emotional range is the same for all questions, this shows a lack of intonation. And so that probably limits your pronunciation score to a 6.
Okay. Thank you, Glenn. I will surely work on that.
You can try smiling too, Mayank. It's okay. You can say, "Thank you, Glenn. I welcome that."
Yeah.
There you go.
Like I have to add the emotions.
Yeah, I know it's tough. I'm a natural introvert. I had to learn how to be an extrovert, and it was very difficult for me. But yeah, learning to add some emotion. Try smiling when you speak. It might help.
Okay.
All right,
you.
we're gonna go to the next one. Thank you so much, Mayank, and have a wonderful evening.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, next up we have Dalior, who's been very active, who wants to know a lot about ChatGPT. I think he asked about 15 questions about ChatGPT. Oh, he's gone. Okay.
Oh,
never mind, Dalio. Next up, we have Mohammed Ajar. If Dalio comes back, we'll add him. Mohammed, can you hear us?
Yes, Glenn, I can hear you properly.
Awesome. Are you ready to answer some IELTS Part 1 questions?
Oh, sure.
Let's talk about your daily routine. What do you usually do after you wake up in the morning?
Well, I'm an early bird riser because as a Muslim, like every day, I wake up early in the morning for my Fajr prayer. That's my daily schedule. And most of the time, after finishing my prayer, and go to the sleep again because nowadays I'm doing nothing because I already completed my IELTS as well as MBA program. That's why I move forward to abroad for my another MBA study. Personally, I would like to choose my economics program because in my past time, I really struggling.
I'm sorry,
That
Mohammed, I
finance and
must
subject.
interrupt you. I must interrupt you and ask the next question. Do you usually go to bed late or early?
Well, I usually go to bed early because of my Fajr prayer, like 5 a.m. Like it's dawn time, not like morning time.
And are your weekends different to your weekdays?
Well, to my mind, especially every day is my weekend because nowadays I'm totally bachelor and I'm still unmarried. That's why, like every day, like when I was passing my day, that time, like totally every moment was totally weekends for me.
And how often do you go out with your friends?
Well, it's a tricky question nowadays for me because most of the friends, like my whole friend circles, was get married. That's why I'm still single, and nowadays I was getting not outside of my home because of that reason.
Thank you. That is the end of the test. I'll throw you over to Brick.
Okay, so we'll go through the questions one by one, and I've seen a couple of people mention this in the comments as well. So your first answer, I think it needed a bit of structure. So the question was, if I remember correctly, tell me about your daily routine. So you would just start off with, what you do in the morning, then what you do in the afternoon, then what you do in the evening, or you can answer something like that. But I think you started off, then it was a bit all over the place. There was no structure to it. Okay, so and you went on for quite a long time, to the point where Glyn had to stop you. So I would try to shorten that. This is something that is very common, by the way. Lots of people think that they have to speak for a very long time because they think they will get a
Yes.
lot of marks. But unfortunately, that's not true. So just be more precise, focus on structure. For question 2, that was a lot better. However, there was still some repetition there. So you already answered in question 1 that you wake up early to pray, and then for question 2, it was the same sort of response. So what I would do here is just use synonyms. So if you say I wake up at 5 o'clock in the morning, instead of saying that again, you could just say something like I wake up really early, or I wake up before most people. So you just want to use a different or a variety of words. As the test went on, you did improve. So I think one of the answers, I think it was your final one. It was. You said that this is a tricky question for me because a lot of your friends are married. I think that was a good response. It was very natural. So
Well,
yeah.
Well, Brick, for my perspective view, I would like to say a lack of practices of my English speaking.
Yeah.
Because as I mentioned earlier, I already appeared my IELTS on Ramadan month, like 7 or 8 months ago. That's
Yeah.
why my schedule are really focusing on German language. That's why
Yeah.
that's the main reason.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. But again, though, to summarize, though, overall, you did improve. And also remember, this feedback is only to make you and everybody else aware of strong points and also areas where you could possibly improve on. So yeah, again, thank you for taking part, Mohammed.
And congratulations on getting your MBA. That's amazing.
Sorry, yes, I do apologize. I
Okay.
forgot to. Yeah, I congratulated you in my mind. Congratulations, that's amazing news, Mohammed. Well done.
Okay, like if you evaluate my speaking section right now, what's my score right now?
Unfortunately, is very difficult to assess a speaking test when there's only one part, because we haven't
Yes.
answered part 2 and part 3. If we do all 3 parts, then I would be more than happy to give a band. But on one part, it's very difficult. So that's why I'm not giving it.
I would say band 6. I think usually after 4 questions, I'm with you, Brick, that you need. When I say band 6, please don't say that this is like the definite answer. But usually, as an examiner, after 4 or 5 questions, you put a candidate in a category of okay, that candidate is like maybe band 6, band 7, band 5.
Yeah,
Yes,
you do have
Glenn
an
is
idea.
absolutely correct. And
For me,
first
band
of all,
6.
as I mentioned earlier, if I should if I go for prepare my IELTS exam in the forthcoming session, hopefully I definitely get 7 or 6.5.
Yeah, just keep on practicing, and inshallah you will get there.
Okay.
All right, thanks, Mohammed. We have a few other people waiting, but thank you so much for joining us, and best of luck.
Okay,
Sorry,
thank you.
yeah. Can I just answer this one question? Can we lie during the speaking exam? So to answer that question, again, you're only tested on your English speaking ability. So whether you make something up or not it doesn't really matter, and the examiner they won't know anyway. Yeah.
I would say make it a believable lie. Don't talk about flying to the moon and things like this, But if it's something, oh yeah, my dad got me a bicycle when I was 7 years old, absolutely fine.
Yeah.
What's the difference? Yeah. All right, we're going to go to Otabek, which sounds like an Uzbek name, I guess. Otabek, am I right? Are you from Uzbekistan or maybe Kazakhstan?
No, I'm from Uzbekistan, sir.
Uh-huh. Well, nice to meet you. Brick is going to ask you some IELTS Part 1 questions, and I'm going to give you some feedback.
Yeah, sure.
Okay. Hi, Otterbeck. I was going to ask you questions about a different topic, but just to be a bit more consistent so the students can see, the viewers can see the differences, I will ask you questions about hometown. So, where is your hometown?
Well, since I was born, I've been living in Tashkent, which is the capital of Uzbekistan, and I could say that Tashkent is an amazing place to live in because there are lots of amenities like shops, football centers, and also fitness clubs and gyms, right?
Okay. And is your hometown a city or a village?
Well, it's a city, and I can say that it's the most major city here in Uzbekistan because it's the capital of the country, obviously, right? So yeah, it's a big, big city, very big.
Okay. And what are people like in your hometown?
Well, I can say that people here are very kind and helpful. Just the other day, I had gotten lost and my phone had died, so I asked for a child to help me, and he actually called his parents to come over and help me, right? And their parents, when their parents came, they handed over me some money and also a phone to call my friends. So yeah, I can say that they're really amazing and helpful people.
Okay, and the final question, what types of jobs do you have in your hometown?
While we have so many types of jobs in my hometown, I can say that the most famous ones are teaching and also engineering because there are lots of educational centers where Uzbek people can learn English, right? For example, I myself work at Galactica, which is an educational center that is designed to help people improve their English skills. So yeah.
Okay, great. Right, thank you very much, Otabek.
All right, so you have a very high level, I would guess at least 7, maybe even an 8. Of course, over the whole test, we want to see that. I love how you started with present perfect continuous, like I've been living. It really sets a nice tone of like, hey, I know what I'm talking about. All of that's good stuff. I'm not sure about the use of amenities. This feels a little bit like it's rehearsed or memorized language. Like amenities for me seems too precise. I like imprecise language in speaking. So I like things like, oh, there's like lots of stuff to do or lots of places to go. I like those expressions more than amenities. Again, amenities sounds a little bit formal, and stuff to do or places to go just sounds a bit better. I loved how when you spoke about Galactica, you didn't just say I work at Galactica, but you actually explained what Galactica is, which is really, really good. You mentioned that the people in your hometown were kind and helpful, but again, you didn't leave it there. You demonstrated your knowledge of helpful by giving an example of like losing your phone. And I liked the way, and like, actually, it was really nice intonation. And actually, someone came back and gave me the phone. So, yeah, I have only good things to say. The only one slightly negative thing I will say is something we call fingerprint language, right? Fingerprint language is language which is unique to you. You use it all the time. And you have this tendency to say, right, 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 right. And I think you used it 4 times. And that's okay sometimes. I think in part 3, maybe that's okay. But in part 1, it's supposed to be an interview. And an interview means there's a question, a person asking the question, and the person giving answers. Part 3 is a discussion. And so if you want to use that right, that's probably more appropriate for part 3. I don't know, Brock, when Otterbeck said right, did you feel instinctively like you wanted to say like, yeah, or something like this?
Yeah, I did notice that. And there was also another phrase that was repeated. I only noticed it because my wife says the same thing, which is you start the sentence off by saying, I can say, but you don't need to say, I can say. You can just go straight into it. Yeah, but again, that was very good. Just as Glenn said, you were very fluent, clear intonation. I really liked it, and especially when you explained towards the end, that was beneficial for me because I didn't even know what that job was. So yeah, overall, well done.
Yeah, and I guess, Otterbeck, are you aiming for like band 8, band 9, or have you done IELTS before?
Yeah, actually, I have taken the test twice, and I am planning to take it again because I want to get an amazing 8, right? So, Uh, yeah, I mean,
What did you get for your speaking before? Let me guess. You got listening 9, reading 8, speaking 7, writing 6.
I actually got 8.5 in listening, 7 in reading, and 6.5 in both writing and speaking.
I think your
Okay.
speaking is better than 6.5, so maybe
Yeah.
it's an
Yeah,
exam technique. I definitely think you should expect minimum 7 in your speaking
Yeah.
test.
yeah, but I took it in spring though.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, so
Okay,
there
so
was
you've
a
had some
long
time
time
to
ago.
improve.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Right.
so thank you so much, sir. I really appreciate what you're doing, and
Yeah.
yeah, right.
Thanks. Enjoy
Thank you.
Tashkent. Lovely place.
Mm.
All right. Thanks, Otterbeck. We're going to invite. We have three more people here. We have. We'll go to Dalior because he got kicked. He's waving there. We'll go to Dalior first, then we'll go to Balnur, and then we'll go to Bek Sultan, and then I think we'll have to leave
Yeah.
it there.
Well, yeah, Glenn, I'm very sorry about this. I'm on my last few. My battery's about to die. So is it okay if we keep this as our last one?
Yeah, I guess so.
Yeah.
So unfortunately, Balnur and Bek Sultan, unfortunately, we won't have time to get to you, but we will go to Dalior. I've muted your microphone, Dalior. Can you make sure that your YouTube feed is off because there's too much background noise? I can hear myself.
Sorry,
have
before
you?
Yeah, I have to turn it off. Exactly, I have to turn it off the YouTube. Yeah, I got it.
Sorry to interrupt. For those people who are in the queue, if you message me, I will organize a test for you. So you don't need to worry about that because I don't want you to wait in the queue and then not have anything for it. Yeah. Sorry,
So
Dalio.
Balnur and Bek Sultan, right to brick. Dalio, you have to turn your volume off because we can hear ourselves in the background.
Yeah, okay. Sorry for.
No, you've muted your microphone, but we need to hear you speak. But we don't want to hear ourselves speak. Do you have earphones or headphones, or maybe just turn the volume down?
Are you hearing me?
Yeah, I'm going to just speak a little. Okay. No, I can still hear myself, Dalio. When I speak, because your volume is coming through your phone, I can hear a lot of background noise. So do you have any headphones?
Really? What about the situation?
Let me try speaking, and now I'll see if it's.
Is it
Okay.
good or not?
It's a little bit better, but I can still hear. But okay, I'll throw some IELTS Part 1 questions at you. Let's talk about animals. Do you like animals?
Mostly, yeah, I like animals, just pandas and cats maybe. But one of the best choices for me, I could say, it's a panda, because panda is really cutie animals. It's distinct animals only I can see in China, not in my country. That's why I love this. I think, yeah, I love pandas more than other animals. Yeah, I love animals generally. Sorry.
And have you ever had a pet?
Yes, I had a pet. It was my dog. It was my good experience when I was at the age of maybe 14 or 18. I was a very young guy, and yeah, I used to feed my cat with a lot of foods, just cat food, especially. Yeah, I was a good owner of this cat, I think.
And do you think it's better to have a dog or a cat?
In my opinion, the best choice for me it could be cats because in Islamic belief, cats are more like tidy animals, like more like intelligent animals than dogs, as we believe. And even our Prophet Muhammad said that, like, even he has his own cat. Yeah, I could say cats. I love cats more than dogs. I mean, yeah, exactly.
when did you last go to the zoo?
When I had gone to the zoo, which was situated in a capital of Uzbekistan called Tashkent Zoo. It was maybe 2 years ago. I could see here lots of zebras and hippos and some like birds. Yeah, it was an amazing experience. Why I went there because, as I said before, I love animals. Yeah, I love animals.
All right, thank you. I'll pass you over to Brick. He's on his last few % of battery, so hopefully, Brick, you'll give the last bit of feedback here.
Okay, right, Dalia, thank you for taking part. So let's start with the first question. So I would say, so overall, actually, I think you sounded very confident. You sounded very relaxed as well, and I could tell that by the pauses. However, I do think there were a bit too many pauses, especially with question 2, where you kept saying after every few words. Okay, so that's something that we could improve on. So let's start with question 1, though. Let's go back to question 1. I think you went on for slightly too long. And again, just like the last candidate, we just need to focus on structure. And with, I think it was question 2 or 3, you said, in my opinion, you started off quite well, but then you said, the better for me is, so we just need to focus on grammar there. I did like your answer for, I think it was question 3, where you said, I prefer cats because, and you gave an example of the Prophet Muhammad having a cat. So that was, you seemed very fluent when you said that. Overall, if I were to say that there's a couple of things to improve on, those things would be grammar and structure.
Oh, he was muted.
Yeah.
He muted himself.
Yeah.
Oh, he disappeared. So I think his body language was really positive, and that was
Very
nice. I liked
positive,
his positive approach. But I know you're down to your last few percentages, so I want to thank you again, Brick, for coming on and making all of this possible. I really enjoyed it, and I hope we can do this again, either on your channel or you'll come back on my channel, and we'll try to help out a bunch of people, maybe with some speaking part 2 next time. But do you have any final comments or anything else you'd like to add?
Well, just a couple of things. So firstly, I would like to thank you, Glyn, for arranging all of this. It's been a pleasure to be a guest on your show. Thanks to everyone who has been leaving comments and been watching. I really appreciate it. I will post my YouTube channel in the comment section. Just give me one moment. So you can, if you have any questions, oh, I hope my battery doesn't die.
He's still here for now.
Okay. But yeah, I will post my channel. Oh, I'm almost there now. Yeah, there you go. Here's the link to my channel if you want to subscribe. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out, and thank you all.
Yeah, thanks everyone who came and gave us questions, and especially thank you to those people who took part 2. Really, really, really appreciate it. And I will do this again very soon. Thank you very much, Brick. Thank you to everyone.
Bye.
Enjoy your evenings and see you all soon. Bye everybody.